What creature would they need to alter in the next phase of bringing back the woolly mammoth?
Rabbits.
Elephants?
You are correct for the point, Miguel, yes.
That seems like...
The Asian elephant. However, there is a snag when it comes to tackling this phase of the process. They've made woolly mice. They want to make woolly Asian elephants. However, what is the complicating factor of experimenting with Asian elephants?
Poachers.
Yes. They are an endangered species.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Hey, I know you're trying to save those guys. Can we do wild, unnecessary experiments on them?
I know. Sort of like maybe they should spend the time saving the Asian elephants first before they bring back the woolly mammoths. But, you know, I'm not a scientist or a mouse. In other mouse news...
Yes, there's more.
A study has shown that mice are capable of providing a vital service to one another. What vital service can mice perform?
They can run Airbnbs.
I think I actually know this. They can revive each other. They bite each other's tongues to make if a mouse passes out, the other one comes in and opens their mouth, bites the tongue, and then the mouse that's out goes, "Oh, I'm awake, leave me alone."
Hooray! Gene for the points!
You are correct. According to The Independent, mice can perform CPR-like resuscitation on each other. A new study shows. Final bonus question. What is the cute nickname for rodent CPR?
Mouse-to-mouse resuscitation.
Alice Moran for the points! And that's it for another exciting Because News. This week's champion... Yeah, it's Gene Yoon. Congratulations, Gene. You have won the honor of reading our credits.
Unbelievable.
I am Gavin Crawford. Shout out to all the Canadians scrapping their U.S. vacations to travel in Canada. There is still a chance you'll be stopped by ice, but at least it's the ice you're used to. We'll see you next week. Why? Because News. Give it up for Miguel Rivas, Gene Yoon, and Alice Moran.
Hey, how you doing, Canada? This is Jean Yoon, winner of Because News. Congratulations to my runners-up, Miguel Rivas and Alice Moran. Because News is written and produced by Elizabeth Bowie, Vanessa Greco, Gavin Crawford, and Jess Klimowski. This week, they had help from Jan Caruana, Adam Cawley, John Blair, and Sam Franks. Rounding out the team, Aaron Conway, Diana Marcoulin, Bronwyn Page, Errol Gonzalez, and our recording engineer, Paul Hodge.
You're listening to CBC Radio 1. CBC, always here for Canada. A shoe retailer who's putting his best foot forward all over the world.
We are selling happiness.
A global symbol of quality forged in a New Brunswick village. And a giant of a man revered by generations of Canadians.
Look up, way up.
Celebrating Canadian brands on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon, I'm Julie Buckingham. At 12 o'clock, it's mostly cloudy and -5 in downtown Winnipeg. A few sunny breaks this afternoon and -2. Gene Bowers is officially Winnipeg's 19th police chief. He was sworn in today after a lengthy process to replace former Chief Danny Smythe. Bowers says his priorities are a dedicated violent crime unit, continuing the retail theft initiative, creating an Indigenous action circle for reconciliation, and a return to community policing. He also wants better mental health crisis services, as his own father died by suicide due to his struggles.
It gave me the gift of empathy, understanding, and compassion for those that have lost loved ones, not only to mental health, but to those who have lost loved ones to other tragic events.
Bowers says as a community officer in the Spence neighborhood, he learned a lot from activists. A Manitoba canola farmer is disappointed with the federal and provincial response to tariffs imposed by China. This week, Beijing will impose a 100% levy on the seed in retaliation for Ottawa putting one on their electric vehicles. Jason Johnson farms south of Morden. He says the feds have given support to the steel industry in the face of U.S. tariffs, but offered producers nothing.
The canola industry in Canada is huge, on par and even greater than any of steel, auto manufacturing, or aluminum. And what I'm upset about is that so far our government has not acknowledged farmers at all.
Johnson says Canada put the tax on EVs to align with the U.S. He adds, with that relationship changing, Canada should admit it was wrong and remove them. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is vowing to get rid of all carbon pricing if he forms the next government. Prime Minister Mark Carney signed a directive Friday ending the carbon tax for you. Poilievre says that's not enough.
This law is still in place, even though Mr. Carney has signed a fake executive order to hide the tax for 35 or 40 days leading up to the election. The full carbon tax also applies to industries. Mr. Carney has said that he wants to expand the industrial carbon tax beyond the already eye-watering increases the government has passed into law.
Poilievre spoke at a steel factory in eastern Ontario he says has been hit by layoffs caused by Donald Trump's tariffs. He called on the president to stop the trade battle, saying it hurts both countries. Prime Minister Mark Carney is now in London as his whirlwind overseas visit continues. It got started earlier today in Paris with Carney meeting French President Emmanuel Macron. Catherine Cullen reports.
Monsieur le Premier Ministre, cher Marc.
Prime Minister Mark Carney got a warm welcome on his first international meeting, not just for himself, but for Canada. French President Emmanuel Macron talked about the friendship and ties that bind Canada and his country and said strengthening ties reinforces sovereignty, something of particular concern to Canada in light of Donald Trump's talk of annexation. Carney's goal on this trip is shows of such support.
Canada is a reliable, trustworthy and strong partner of France, which shares our values and lives them through action during this age of economic and geopolitical crises.
He's on to London, where he'll meet with King Charles, then with Prime Minister Keir Starmer. He'll also stop in Iqaluit before returning to Ottawa to make a point about Canada's Arctic sovereignty. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Paris.
U.S. President Donald Trump will be speaking tomorrow with Russian President Vladimir Putin. On the agenda is the ceasefire proposal the U.S. has drafted for that war. Ukraine supports the plan, but foreign analysts say Moscow is laying out conditions that will only drag out the proceedings. Briar Stewart has the details.
We'll be talking about land, we'll be talking about power plants, dividing up certain assets.
Last week, Putin said he agreed to the idea of a ceasefire, but then spoke at length, outlining what he saw as obstacles. Like, would the 30-day truce give Ukraine a chance to mobilize more troops and secure additional weapons?
Those conditions that they have presented, it shows that they don't really want peace, because...
EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas says that's clear because Putin's conditions include his ultimate goals for his invasion of Ukraine. European countries, along with the UK, are meeting to discuss what happens if there is a ceasefire and who will monitor it. Well, France and Britain have committed to putting peacekeepers on the ground in Ukraine. Russia has repeatedly said that it will not support that. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
And home sales in February falling to their lowest level in more than a year. The Canadian Real Estate Association says that's because of the uncertainty created by the trade war with the U.S. The number of houses changing hands were down nearly 10% compared to January. Listings had also decreased, and the average price of those sold in the last month was down 3.3% from a year ago. That is the CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local CBC News is at 12:30. Your forecast now in Winnipeg, mainly cloudy, few sunny breaks this afternoon and -2 for Brandon. Light snow, wind out of the northeast at 20, high -5. Clouds for Dauphin, the high -6. Flin Flon and the Paw, starting out mainly sunny, but increasing clouds later this afternoon and -6. Thompson, mainly sunny and -9. Churchill clearing this afternoon, afternoon, blowing snow, windy in the high -16. You're listening to CBC Radio 1.
Thanks very much, Julie Buckingham from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Magandang hapon, good afternoon, Manitoba. Faith Fundal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence. This is Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 990 AM in Lunder Beach, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg. Lots to come on the program. What do you remember from shopping at the Bay? Is nostalgia kicking in now? The iconic department store is heading to court trying to liquidate all 80 of its stores. So bring us back to the heyday of the Bay on our call-in portion coming up after 12:30. In this half hour, an ice fishing guide says he's had to rescue dozens of people stuck on the ice this season, and he says it's putting his life and the lives of his employees at risk. We'll hear more coming up. But first, as you heard on your CBC Winnipeg News, Winnipeg's new police chief has officially been sworn in. We'll hear what he had to say in his first moments as police chief coming up next. And we're at 7 minutes after 12 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Hello to the folks watching us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. And we'll continue on the program here. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marjorie Dowhouse. As you've heard, it's official. The city of Winnipeg has a new police chief, Gene Bauer, sworn in as the 19th police chief of the Winnipeg Police Service. He is a 36-year veteran of the force, and he replaces Danny Smythe, who retired in September. Since that time, Art Stannard filled in as interim chief. Let's take a listen to what was said at the ceremony today. Here's Mayor Scott Gillingham.
Chief Bowers has committed more than 30 years of policing to Winnipeg. It's an act of public service. It's an act of dedication to our community. And over that time, he's taken on some of the most challenging and complex issues facing law enforcement, leading special investigations, working to combat human trafficking, working to modernize policing operations. He's built strong relationships in the community and understands that public safety is about more than just reactionary policing. It's about prevention, intervention, and collaboration. Being chief of police is one of the most critical leadership roles in our city. It carries with it immense responsibility because if people don't feel safe, then everything else in the city is affected. Businesses, families, communities, visitors, everything depends in our city upon a foundation of safety and stability. And that's why this role is not only about law enforcement, it's truly about leadership.
That is Winnipeg Mayor Scott Gillingham speaking during his swearing-in ceremony at the Winnipeg Police Service headquarters. Police Chief Gene Bowers also spoke at the swearing-in ceremony.
I think it's important to share with everyone a little about who I am and why I am so passionate about policing and what has driven me to become a police officer. As I was growing up, I witnessed my father's struggles with mental health, who sadly ended up taking his own life when I was 9. The loss of my dad was extremely difficult for my mother, Dawn, and I. But it also taught me how to persevere and not let others define who I am or who I can be. It gave me the gift of empathy, understanding, and compassion for those that have lost loved ones, not only to mental health, but to those who have lost loved ones to other tragic events. I believe becoming a police officer would give me the opportunity to help those suffering from trauma because I have been there myself. I will work towards community-based solutions to address issues related to mental health crisis, to ensure that professionally trained mental health practitioners are the ones responding to people who are struggling with mental health so that people like my father will get the help they need. Being raised by a single mother, my family, like many people in our city, face financial struggles. And as family here can attest to, as a young teenager, I was between making the right decisions and wrong decisions. Structure was, however, brought into my life through sport, which was supported by community groups who supplied the necessary equipment and many coaches who invested in me. This community support allowed me to gain an appreciation of the true impact that our community organizations provide daily. I am living proof that investment in young people during adolescence contributes to holistic development and the likely pursuit of a positive future. I will continue to support our many members who already volunteer and challenge all members to find opportunities to positively impact our youth through coaching and mentoring. I will promote restorative justice initiatives, particularly in relation to the youth in our city, to provide wraparound supports, keeping them out of the justice system. I will work with organizations such as Mama Way. During my early years with the Winnipeg Police Service, I was assigned as a foot patrol officer in the Spence neighborhood and learned the true value of community policing. I worked directly with community members to problem solve and make their neighborhood a safer place. I learned from great community leaders like the late Reverend Harry Lahotsky that true healing and positive change comes from within the community. I understand that each community has unique challenges and representation. There is a need for our members and leaders to become more accessible and to build stronger relationships. We will not only listen to our community members, we will respond. Winnipeggers need to see change. Now is the time to reinvest in community engagement and intelligence-led policing. My leadership team and I will be more visible and present in the community, listening to your concerns directly. I will lead the service towards solutions which will support frontline policing and assist our General Patrol members to improve response times and achieve the level of service our citizens expect. Violent crime cannot be tolerated. As Chief, I refuse to accept the level of violence the city is experiencing and will ensure a suppression strategy is deployed to meet this challenge head-on. This will include a focus on repeat violent offenders released on bail conditions. I will implement a dedicated unit to addressing violent crime, utilizing data-driven intelligence and metrics. As Chief, I will ensure individual member and organizational wellness remain a priority. I will continue to encourage and support the service's diverse membership, ensuring representation throughout all ranks and positions, including the executive. I will strive to improve communication with membership to ensure all voices are heard. I will continue with the Real Change, Real Difference initiative to ensure that members are supported at all levels and continue to foster a culture of change and improvement within the service. One of the many strengths of this city is its cultural diversity. I will work to ensure Winnipeg Police Service is representative of these diverse communities. With that, I will establish a community-based diversity action circle to ensure inclusion and representation of all citizens with a focus on newcomers. My vision is that the Winnipeg Police Service will be a leader in reconciliation with our Indigenous communities to heal past wounds. And my ultimate hope is that reconciliation will be woven into the fabric of our service. My thoughts are with all MMIWG2S families and friends who have lost or are missing loved ones. To help chart our course forward, I will follow the recommendations from the Aboriginal Justice Inquiry, the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the principles held within the United Nations Declaration on Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and the calls to justice from the National Inquiry into the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. In doing this, I will open communication opportunities with MMIWG2S families. I will continue to support the Red Dress Alert Initiative for Missing Women and Girls. I am committed to strengthening relationships with Indigenous communities and leaders, and with their consultation, I will establish an Indigenous Action Circle to facilitate dialogue, education, and shared responsibility to ensure all Indigenous people are heard, feel valued, and most importantly, are safe. Winnipeg is an amazing and vibrant city, facing real social challenges. These issues cannot be solely addressed by the Winnipeg Police Service alone. Rather, now is the time to strengthen our partnerships, build trust, and gain community confidence. To achieve this, we will continue to work with our justice and community partners, such as the Downtown Community Safety Partnership, Winnipeg Safety Officers, the numerous biz organizations, Manitoba Justice, and the numerous federal, provincial, and municipal policing agencies in Manitoba. These partnerships also extend to the numerous community groups, businesses, and social agencies who work and volunteer to keep our city safe. Winnipeg is my home, and Winnipeg is our city. I want our city to be safe and secure for everyone.
That is Winnipeg Police Chief Gene Bauer speaking at his swearing-in ceremony at the Winnipeg Police Service headquarters. You can read more on this story on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Every corner of Canada deserves a voice. Local news connects us from coast to coast to coast. CBC is expanding local news locations all over the country, and we're looking for storytellers. Help us tell your story and make a difference in your community. Visit cbc.ca/workwithus to apply today.
Good afternoon, magandang hapon. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marjorie Dowhouse. This is Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 990 AM in Lundar Beach, 97.9 FM in Brandon. We're here with a big team. Travis Peterson is on our streaming producer on YouTube. Hello to the folks watching there as well. To Sanders, our studio director, Abby Adiyemi, on the controls. Lots to come on the program. We are going to reflect on the history of the Bay from the curator of the Bay collection, the good, the bad, and the ugly, a reality the company is now dealing with as it looks to liquidate all 80 of its stores. So help us peruse what shopping was like that's in your memory through the years on our call-in segment. Also, still to come, an ice fishing guide says he's had to rescue dozens of people stuck on the ice this season, and he says it's putting his life and the life of his employees at risk. We'll hear from him coming up in just a few moments. It is mostly cloudy, -3 here in downtown Winnipeg, cloudy and -7 in Brandon, light snow falling, -13 in Dauphin, in Thompson this hour, partly cloudy and -14 degrees, in Churchill this hour, drifting snow and -20. We're expecting cloudy conditions for the rest of today in Winnipeg, high of -2 tonight, chance of light snow, but clearing overnight and a low of -8 degrees. For Brandon, today, light snow in the forecast, high of -5, periods of snow ending, then partly cloudy, low of -11. In Dauphin today, cloudy as well, high of -6 tonight, cloudy, clearing I should say, after midnight and a low of -12. Thompson, mainly sunny, high of -9 tonight, increasing cloudiness and a low of -15 degrees. A Manitoba fishing guide has a warning for people who want to ice fish on Lake Winnipeg. Don't head out if you're not prepared, if you're inexperienced, or the weather is bad. Now, that sound here is from a video posted to Facebook by Ian Hailstone. Sounds of the wind and snow blowing on Lake Winnipeg last Monday. In the video, there's near zero visibility and a truck is stuck on the ice. That wind, the day wind, was gusting at around 40 kilometers an hour with blowing snow. The RCMP confirmed to CBC News that a truck was stuck about 20 kilometers west of Laconia. Fire and rescue took people out of the truck. Fortunately, no injuries were reported. Brady Kingsland operates Kingsland Outfitting and says that stuck trucks on the ice is nothing new. He's an ice fishing guide and lives near the lake. He says he's had too many people reaching out to him and his employees to rescue stranded folks off the ice. Now, the CBC's Marjorie Dowhouse recently spoke with him. She first asked him how many people he's had to rescue this ice fishing season.
Well over 100 already, this season. Like, we've been out here since, I think we were out in January. The first week of January, we got our ice houses out, and we've been out here every day since. And I mean, it's one thing to pull guys out if you're driving by and passing, and a guy's stuck. I mean, that's kind of the code out here. You don't really leave anybody, stranded. But we got guys coming and knocking on our doors at 2:30 out in the middle of Lake Winnipeg when we work 14-hour days, running gunning and fishing out here and stuff, and then people waking us up and. It kind of gets to a point where, it's not, and then it's not, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to do it when people are just ungrateful and they don't bring the right stuff. You don't come out on the Lake Winnipeg without a tow strap, without clevises, without shackles, without a good shovel, and, even a 4x4 vehicle seems to be, some people are coming out here in cars still, which is ridiculous. It seems that, we get a little bit more because we live on the ice, and people just come and it's like I said, it's going to take someone getting seriously injured or unfortunately death to where people will just be like, oh shoot, I got to actually grab the right stuff. Because I mean, when it gets bad out here, you cannot see your hand in front of your face, and it could be doing that for a whole day. I mean, her name's not Big Windy for no reason, right? So it gets pretty bad out here.
Do you know who was stuck out there, or like what happened?
I don't know exactly the people, but I mean, it happens every time. I mean, if every time there's a storm out here, no matter if the forecast. And then the thing is, when those people come out, and they're nowhere near as experienced as we are. I mean, when you live out here every day, I mean, you get to know the lake and you get to know how to do things a little bit better and, in a safe manner. But when people come out here and put their lives in danger and then they get stuck and they expect us to come, and then I'm putting my life or my employees' lives in jeopardy as well just to go get them. And then, they don't think about, what if we get stuck on the way out there to get them? Then we're in trouble. Then we got to bring another people out. And it's just a domino effect of, And there's a lot of times where we say no because it's so bad we can't get out there. And people just shoot us down. And they're just like, oh, you should be ashamed of yourself. You're a terrible person. And it's like, holy smokes.
Why do you think so many people are going out there and risking, their lives to be out there without being prepared or without really anticipating what's going to happen out there with the weather?
Yeah, I honestly, I think the only thing that it is because we're out here and people know that somebody will come get them. Because it feels like the mentality is, well, if it's stormy out, who cares? We've got the day off. We took the day off anyways. Let's go anyways. And somebody will come get us. I feel like that's the mentality. And it's unfortunate because, that's not always the case. I don't, and I mean, like I said, when guys like us, like me and Chris, we're outfitters, we're working, especially March. March is so busy for us. I mean, when the wind gets over 35, 40 kilometers out here, even if there's no snow in the forecast, the wind is going to pick up the snow off the ground on this ice and just turn it into a whiteout out here. Mm-hmm. And then there goes your trails, there goes everything. Your trail that you might have made 8 hours ago when you were fishing or 4 hours ago is gone. And then you have to break the trail again. And if you come out here with a two-wheel drive vehicle or even a smaller truck that doesn't have much clearance, you're not going to make it off the ice.
What do you think is going to stop people before something really bad happens?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. Like I said, I think it's going to take something bad happening for people to be like, oh, shoot, maybe we shouldn't do this. Giving me, I've been out here on this lake for 20 years, and there's been times where I've thought, we might not make it through. Experience is great, but even the most experienced guys get caught. There's guys out here that commercial fish for, their whole lives. And
yeah, because you're very experienced. Right?
Yeah, very, very, growing up on this lake, fortunate enough to live 5 minutes from the lake, and just grown up fishing it since I was a baby, pretty much. So, and now I'm 36 years old, right? So, it's definitely well over 20 years of experience, but and living on the ice now, this is our fourth year living on the ice. So you really get to see how things take effect out here when you live out here 24/7. Right now, where I'm talking to you, I'm in the middle of Lake Winnipeg as much as it can get on the South Basin. Right now, I am straight out from the mouth of the Red River in about 16 feet of water. And, I'm sitting in my ice castle right now, and it's nice out. It's gorgeous, but, there's not a soul around me. And I could tell you that if I had to get off in a storm, if a storm blew up right now, it would take me 45 minutes to get to land. And that's normal. Everybody wants to come to the mouth to fish. Because that's where all the migrating walleye are coming from the north, and they're migrating south down to get into the river to spawn in the spring. It's definitely not a joke out here, and people have to take the right precautions before something bad happens. Because it's only a matter of time. The amount of people that are out here fishing on the weekend, it's crazy. There's thousands of people out here, and especially March, because people come from literally all over the world to come fish this. This is, in my opinion, the best walleye fishing in the world, drive-to fishing in the world, and it's getting. It's always well known. Lake Winnipeg is known for its green walleye, greenbacks, and everybody wants to come and catch them.
That is Brady Kingsland, an ice fishing guide and the operator of Kingsland Outfitting. You can. He was speaking with the CBC's Marjorie Dowhouse with some really important advice there and context.
Winkler in Morden. Let's talk.
CBC wants to get to know you a little bit better. I'm Rosanna Hempel. CBC's Communities in Focus is coming to Winkler and Morden March 17th to 21st. What do you want us to know about your communities? What stories are we missing? I can't wait to meet you. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
That's right. We will be in Winkler and Morden, or Morden and Winkler, depending on who you ask. CBC Manitoba is there starting today. If you have a story you want to share or just want to say hello, Nadia Kidwai is there today at Whitecap Coffee in Winkler from 11 o'clock until 4 p.m. and again tomorrow from 10 to 6 p.m. And later this week, Morden as well at Coffee, Culture, Cafe and Eatery on Stephen Street. Tonight as well, or today, we'll be at the 5:45 community meal at Winkler Central Station Community Centre. We want to meet you and hear your stories, so come and say hello. We'll be sharing some of the stories that we tell, that we hear about here on the program. And of course, Information Radio is going to be live broadcasting at Decor Cabinets in Morden tomorrow morning, so be sure to say hello. We're at 27 minutes after 12 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, and Winnipeg singer-songwriter Noah Dirksen just shared his new album, Stolen Serenades, a collection of cover songs that helped to shape him as an artist. From the new album, this is Noah Dirksen with a cover of These Days by Jackson Brown. Out of Winnipeg, that is Noah Dirksen with a cover of These Days by Jackson Brown. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM here in Winnipeg, 12:30 AM in Churchill, and 100.9 FM in Thompson. Still to come on the program, what do you remember from shopping at the Bay? Is nostalgia kicking in now? The iconic department store heads to court trying to liquidate all 80 of its stores. So bring us back to the heyday of the Bay during our call-in segment. I'll give you the phone numbers to call, 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon. I'm Julie Buckingham. In downtown Winnipeg at 12:30, overcast and -3. Some sun this afternoon and -2. Winnipeg's 19th police chief is officially Gene Bowers. The 35-year veteran of the force was sworn in today and has a number of priorities. Bowers commits to continue the retail crime initiative and to create a dedicated team to deal with violent crime. And he also wants an Indigenous circle to address issues between the service and the community.
My vision is that the Winnipeg Police Service will be a leader in reconciliation with our Indigenous communities to heal past wounds. And my ultimate hope is that reconciliation will be woven into the fabric of our service.
Bowers became emotional during his speech, talking about his father's struggles. He died by suicide when Bowers was 9. He wants mental health workers to take a more active role in helping to prevent crime. An MMIW advocate hopes the new police chief will work to make amends with the families of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron. In 2022, his predecessor refused to search the Prairie Green landfill for their remains after they were killed by a serial killer. Last month, the remains of Morgan Harris were identified after a search. Sheila North says Bowers needs to meet with the families.
To apologize to them on behalf of the service, because I think without those critical steps, we're going to have a difficult time rebuilding that relationship. So there has to be an acknowledgement of what has happened and a promise and a commitment to do better.
Bowers was asked about the decision not to search the landfill and whether he would apologize. He said he wishes to meet with both families before publicly responding. Canada needs to take the tariffs off Chinese electric vehicles to prevent massive retaliatory 100% ones on canola. That from Jason Johnson, a grower south of Morden. Johnson says those levies on EVs were announced so Ottawa would be in line with the U.S.
So we need to be making it right with China. If the U.S. is not going to be a favorable trade partner anymore, why are we not? China is a huge market. Why are we not seeking out that market and doing what we can to fulfill that market?
Johnson says the canola industry is as big, if not bigger, than steel. He adds he's yet to see any support for farmers from the federal or provincial governments. Johnson contends since the tariffs were announced, the price of his seed has dropped $2 a bushel, costing him about $80,000 a year. That is the CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local CBC News comes your way at 1:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You bet.
Julie Buckingham from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Welcome back to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 97.9 FM in Brandon, 105.3 FM in Dauphin. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marjorie Dowhouse. And coming up shortly here, what do you remember from shopping at the Bay? Is nostalgia kicking in now? The iconic department store is in court trying to liquidate all 80 of its stores. So bring us back to the heyday of the Bay during our call-in segment. 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. I know there are some phone calls that are up already. Radley Lechek also here with the forecast, a good day to try to remember as well because it's sunny.
Yes. And you know what? For the first time in a while, I'm going to say that we're actually looking at a pretty stable week.
Whoa! Such a big surprise.
For most of us. So temperatures right now, I know we are seeing a little bit of snow in some parts of the province. -3 in Winnipeg, Steinbach, Sprague right now. Brandon's at -7, -13 in Dauphin, as well as in Swan River at the moment. And Thompson's at -14 degrees. I say for most of us because there is a weak area of instability working its way along the international border right now. There's an area of low pressure sitting kind of at the intersection, the border between Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and North Dakota at the moment. That's spreading a little bit of snow into Westman and along extreme southern parts of the province right now. Places like Morden Winkler into Emerson getting a couple of centimeters of snow. That is competing with an area of high pressure that is currently sitting just on the north basin of Lake Winnipeg right now. And there's a cold front that extends kind of along the Hudson Bay coast right into the Northwest Territory. So that's why we're seeing some colder conditions right now into places like Dauphin and Swan River versus some of those minus single digits here in the southern part of the province. So cooler but sunnier in the north, a little bit of cloud here in southern Manitoba. But overall, I think we're looking at a pretty decent day across the south. Maybe a few flurries here in the Red River Valley late evening into the overnight hours. And then we clear out, mix of sun and clouds really tomorrow. We'll rinse and repeat for Wednesday, again for Thursday. Next chance, I think, for some precipitation here in the south comes later in the week. Could see maybe a couple of showers to close out the week here. But other than that, really not a lot to talk about. Snowfall, 2 to 5 centimeters on the high end for Westman. Places like Morden, I think, looking at about 2 centimeters by the time we get to this time tomorrow. +3 for tomorrow, +2 for Wednesday. +4 to start spring on Thursday, -2 for Friday, and then looking at -1 with a mainly sunny sky on the way for Saturday. So pretty stable and seasonal.
I like stability,
There
as
you
you know
go.
me. All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
That's Riley Leachuk, our CBC Manitoba weather specialist. We're at 36 minutes after 12 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. And remember this?
It's Bay Day, our biggest store-wide sale of the season with spectacular savings on hundreds of items. Ladies' sweaters in 21 colors, half price, just $11.99. Buy a Baycrest suit at the regular price and get one at no extra charge. Baycrest Sayel yarn in 39 colors, 50% off. And 50% off Baycrest Grand Award and Gold Award sleep sets. Don't miss it. Bay Day's exploding with savings now.
Yes, that's all it costs when you shop at the Bay.
All right, if it wasn't obvious to you, that is an old advertisement from the Bay in 1988. The company was founded in 1670, but now 355 years later, the end of the Hudson's Bay Company is happening, and pretty quickly. The storied company has applied for protection and will have to sell all of its 80 stores. Stark reversal from last week when it tried to keep the business afloat in some capacity. More than 9,000 jobs are at risk. So our phone-in conversation today is, how does this all feel for you? How do you remember what it was like shopping at the Bay? Take us through your shopping trips that stand out for you. 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. You can text us, if you can safely, not driving, please, 204-588-7355. I know we have some phone callers waiting, so we'll get to them in a moment here. But first, Amelia Fay is curator of the Hudson's Bay Museum Collection at the Manitoba Museum, joining us by Zoom. Welcome to the program. Hello.
Hello, thanks for having me.
When you heard about the news that the Bay was essentially going bankrupt, I mean, what did that feel like for you?
I'll admit it was kind of a mix of surprise and not surprise. So a little bit of both, having, being a Winnipegger and a retail shopper, being in the stores, maybe not a surprise, seeing how things have declined a little bit, but being a historian of the company's history, a little bit surprised that it's now that this is happening, considering all the storms they've weathered so far. So, you look at all the various points in the company's history, from world wars to the Great Depression, all of that they've survived through. So to see it coming now is a little bit surprising.
Do you think this was a possibility that the company considered when it first started to fast forward through all of those challenging times, that this would actually be where it had to be?
I'm not too sure. I think, fast forwarding through all of that and to now, I think this might have even surprised them perhaps a little bit too, but not being a member of the company, I'm not entirely sure how that all played out at those boardroom tables.
A little bit different. Yeah, I'm asking you questions when you're not in the boardroom. So thank you for characterizing it that way. All right, so we're going to go to the phone lines now. I think we just lost one of our lines. So give us a call back, the person who had been waiting the longest. Sorry about that. We're going to go to Bill here. Bill, welcome to the program. What do you remember the most about shopping at the Bay?
Well, I remember going to the Bay as a very young child with my mom. I'm 70 years old, so that was a long time ago. But I remember it being huge, many floors, along with Eaton's, them being the two big stores at the time. I remember, funny enough, the washrooms were, they had beautiful white marble in the washrooms. I remember the paddle wheel restaurant. I loved the paddle wheel. I remember in the basement they had the malt shop. We could go and get chocolate malts. And I remember they had a floor where they used to sell ladies' furs. For some reason that stands out for me too. So yeah, those are the memories that stand out.
And Bill, you're talking about the shopping at the Bay here in Winnipeg.
Yes, at Balmoral and Portage Avenue.
Bill, thanks very much for calling us. Of course, we're asking folks to do what Bill did, call us as we reflect on the Bay. 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. Amelia Fay is curator of the Hudson's Bay Museum Collection at the Manitoba Museum. You were nodding as you heard Bill describe what he remembered. What was it like back then?
I think even me as a child of the 80s and 90s here in Winnipeg, a lot of what Bill said resonated for me too. I remember going downtown and shopping, going to the paddle wheel. Like, I was really sad when the downtown store closed because I had really fond memories of shopping with my family, getting Jell-O cubes, all that good stuff. And the bathrooms too. People love the bathrooms. That became a big thing when the store closed. I had a lot of inquiries about what was going to happen to fixtures within the store. And we did go in and assess a lot of things potentially for the museum collection as well, thinking about preserving history for future Manitobans. So that's kind of part of my job too. So yeah, Bill's memories, I think, are probably shared by a lot of Winnipeggers and probably for other Canadians at different department stores as well.
Let's head back to the phone lines here. Donald has been listening in. I think I pressed it. No, we'll press it again here. Here we go. Donald has been listening in as Bill described what he remembered. Donald, what stands out for you when you think of the Bay?
Well, I remember going with my grandmother from her place, and we'd take the bus, and when it turned around All Saints Church there to come up beside the bay, the lines always came off, and the bus driver would get out, put them back on, and then we'd get to the bay. The thing I remember most is going for lunches with Nana at the paddle wheel. I remember the delicious hamburgers, the homemade dill pickle relish, and always a slice of cheesecake. I'm not sure whether it was blueberries or pineapple that I enjoyed the most.
Donald, do you remember what it smelled like when you would, as soon as you got off the bus, walked in and tried to get to a table? Do you remember what it smelled like?
Oh, it was good. It was good. But I just remember that taste of that dill pickle relish. And then later on, I remember going to the Georgian room with my parents and my great aunt, and I had just stuffed myself because they had a great buffet in the Georgian room.
So, Donald, as you hear about the Bay essentially looking to shutter all of its stores, I mean, how does that feel for you, given all of these memories that you have?
Well, when, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago when I was downtown and I walked through the walkways to the Bay and got there, and it was just, closed up and it had been sold. But it's sad because, see, my one grandmother was a Bay shopper and the other was an Eaton's shopper. And to think that we've lost the Eaton's and now we're losing the Bay. And, a lot of it's the building, because that was just a special building to be in, the high ceilings and just, I shopped there for records and toys and Christmas decorations. And then when I got married, just before we got married, my wife and I were there, and that's where we bought our dining room suite from. And we were so long making decisions and things, there were a number of nights at that time we heard the closing music, which was really special too.
Donald, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. Amelia Fay is curator of the Hudson's Bay Museum collection at the Manitoba Museum. Amelia, you heard Donald describe a lot of the physical things. How do you decide what makes the cut when you curate a collection to represent Hudson's Bay Company?
It's tricky. It has to be something that can be used to help tell a story, to help tell the history, but also something that feasibly fits within our four walls. So I will joke that I had dreams of getting the paddle wheel and bringing the paddle wheel here to the museum, and our conservator would not have been happy with me.
So just a dream for now. You weren't able to to make it happen.
So smaller things that are a little bit more portable, a little easier to pick from, and just things that help resonate with Winnipeggers as well. So one of the things that seems kind of mundane, but it's one of the cafeteria tray tables I brought into the collection because so many people love the paddle wheel and the Georgian room as well. And so even just that tray table, I think, resonates with people. They'd see it, there'd be the nostalgia, there'd be that connection. So some things that aren't, super exquisite or fantastic can tell a lot more meaningful story than, say, something that a lot of people never used or touched, right? But the trays, everybody used them.
Right, and so part of that as well is bringing in or helping remind people of those memories, because you're right, the tray may not have been part of any significant memory, or a significant part of its history, but it's been there for a whole bunch of other things, which may include that.
Yeah.
Let's go to the phone lines here, and I'll remind folks what the number is: 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. You can text us, 204-588-7355. Colleen has been listening in. And Colleen, what stands out for you as you hear this conversation?
Well as the paddle wheel in the Georgian room that people mentioned, I like going there. Every Christmas, the Bay, I don't know exactly when it started and when it shut down, but the Bay had a Christmas choir of the employees, and they used to stand on the steps and sing carols. I think it was started at 8:30 in the morning, and it was broadcast on one of the radio stations. And so, I liked listening to the carols.
Amelia, do you know when this started, or do you know what Colleen is talking about here as you look through curating the what you have there?
No, that's the first I've heard of the carols, although I do know that a lot of employees kind of served many different roles for certain holidays. So that's actually a really interesting tidbit. Thank you, Carol, for sharing that.
Colleen, tell us more about what it is that you remember about that time. What do you feel when you think about that time?
I like Christmas, and I like carols, and I like the singing. I definitely know who does know or who would know about this is he used to work at CBC, Gary Moyer. And I know I heard a recording of the choir on a different station that plays nostalgia music, but he played it, I believe, this year at Christmas time.
There you go, Colleen.
So he would know. He's written a book too about, radio. I think it's called On Air.
Well, we'll try and find that, and I'm sure Amelia.
He does the history vault, and I think the Bay Choir is part of it. So he would know.
Colleen, appreciate you making time to call and share those memories with us. We're here with Amelia Fay, curator of the Hudson's Bay Museum collection at the Manitoba Museum. We'd love to hear from you folks. Colleen has called us, and a few other people have called us. What do you remember about shopping at the Bay? What 3 words would you use when you think of the Bay now? The brand is iconic, Amelia, and part of that also includes its colonial history. How do you think the Bay right now reflects that shared history?
I think the Bay has really grappled with that aspect of their history and has only quite recently started to make those stronger connections and kind of take some ownership for it. And I would say that that's still kind of tentative. And I think that's part of what makes the history really interesting for me as curator, is that it's very complicated. There are some people that look at HBC and, the stripes as like a kind of identifier, part of Canadian identity, a thing of pride. And then there's other folks that feel completely different about the history and about the company and about seeing those stripes. And so it's kind of, it's not all black and white. There's many shades of gray. And I think, HBC was starting to make those connections. And so it's kind of sad now to see that perhaps it's not going to fully come to fruition and reconciliation in terms of their role in colonizing Canada.
I guess that answer, if I were to ask the Bay that question before this filing, and then 20 years ago, and then 50 years ago, then 200 years ago, that answer would very likely be very, very different.
Yes.
What do you think about when you see items or when you see things in your exhibit? Where does that play when you think about its colonial history? What decisions do you make when you decide, is this something that I want to be part of it?
Yeah, I think some of it too is about reinterpreting the narrative as well. So for instance, the nonsuch. Everybody loves the ship here in the museum. It's beautiful. And it's okay to have complicated feelings about the ship and acknowledge the role that ship played in setting the stage for HBC to come into what's now Canada and be part of that colonial process. And so I think for some people, that's a hard one to grapple with, even for me as a curator, growing up in Winnipeg and loving that ship. And so finding that balance between nostalgia, but also recognizing and being open to reinterpreting what that ship actually means.
In a creditor protection ruling, Ontario Superior Court Judge Peter Osborne wrote, quote, it is hard not to have a sense of melancholy Perhaps you're feeling that sense of melancholy or you feel something else. Call us 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. Sally is on the line now. Sally, how are you feeling about all of this?
Hi. It's very upsetting in a way for me. I'm in my 70s, and that was my mother's preferred store, so we were always at the Bay shopping, and I remember what it was like, the open aisles and the high ceilings and Christmas decorations. And then my father would take us every year in the 50s at some point, as the person mentioned earlier, to see the carols as they were all assembled on the stairs to the mezzanine singing the carols, and that was always wonderful. And I think I probably saw Santa there. I can't remember for sure. But that was also where my first job was. I worked as a part-time floater there. Not like, I don't know for sure if I was part-time. I think actually I was full-time, but I got moved around to different departments. And I remember Bay Day being crazy, and I got stuck in the hosiery department, which was at the base of the stairs on the main floor by the base of the elevator. And that would be the last place anybody would go to get stockings, just before their doctor's appointment. And the stockings were all marked in a box, so you had to read the number to get what the heck they wanted.
And Sally, how quickly were your interactions with people? Were they like, hey, I need this, thanks, bye?
It was pretty pressing. I've got a doctor's appointment, quick, I got to get this going. So you had to work quickly. And also the shoe department, if there was a sale, they'd all be lined up next to the elevators. They'd hold them back until whenever the opening time officially was, and then they'd all come flooding forward and want shoes. And also, I'm wondering what has happened. One of my jobs there one time was I got sent down to Eaton's for their Eaton sale to count how many people were sort of in certain departments, to sort of snoop on what was going on down there. And I'm just wondering if the curator from the museum knows what's happened to the gorgeous murals that were the painted murals above the elevators on the main floor.
It's a very good question, Sally. Let's put that to Amelia. Amelia Fay is curator of the Hudson's Bay Museum collection at the Manitoba Museum. Do you know what happened to those?
I sure do. They're right here at your Manitoba Museum. So,
great.
Yeah, the first one had actually come down in the 40s when they took out that bank of elevators and put the escalators in that I remember. I don't remember two banks of elevators. And then the second mural came down in 2014. And so both murals are here at the museum. They're far too large to exhibit in our regular galleries, but they're being well taken care of for now.
Oh, good. Well, I also worked at the museum, so you do great work there.
Sally, thank you for making time to call, and take care.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Let's take one more phone call here. Marjorie, who has been listening in. Marjorie, what comes up for you as we have this conversation?
Hi there. When I hear the song No Time Left for You with Burton Cummings and the Guess Who, I remember, I'm sorry, I can't remember if it was 65 or 66, but probably both years I would be browsing in the jewelry department near the escalator, and these three teenagers were there, and I knew they were probably musicians, but I was uninformed. I didn't go up to the paddle wheel, and I didn't even know they were performing there. But I believe those are the killing three referred to in the song. And the watch and chain, that's why they were in the jewelry department. So I'm always intrigued about the words of the song, and the revolving doors in the song is referenced. So it's a song about the Bay, I feel.
Marjorie, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to get one more, phone call here. I know the phone lines are lighting up. We'll go back to Amelia. Amelia Fay is curator of the Hudson's Bay Museum collection at the Manitoba Museum. You heard Marjorie describe a song that reminded her of the Bay. What are you hoping people will remember the Bay for? That and food and other things?
Yeah, I think it's highly personal what you remember the Bay for, but I think, kind of holding whatever memories you have around the store. For me, it's the nostalgia, it's the food. I'm a foodie. But for folks, it could be something entirely different. But I think honoring and remembering those things are part of the historical process. And so it's nice to hear other people calling in and sharing their stories. And I think, I don't know, not that I have tons of time, that could be a cool research project where I go interview people to get their perspectives on the store and the history.
Could be your next thing. We have time for one more caller. Gail has been patiently waiting. Gail, What stands out for you?
Oh, hello. I shopped at the base since the early 70s on the elevators, up and down with the elevator operator. I loved the basement grocery section. And when you walked in, there was a clerk behind there was a case with a clerk behind it, and they were very helpful. We found stuff. And in the basement, they had extra services like shoe repair, and you can buy groceries down there. And I firmly believe that we should keep our bay because it's our history, and they should not be demolished. And we have the same kind of shopping in the big malls, but the bay is even better because it's all under one roof, and it's the building and the part of our land and our life that we should keep the bay and not just demolish it.
Gail, thank you for your phone call. CBC has done a lot of stories about what is going to or could happen to that building. You can visit our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Amelia Fay, again, curator of the Hudson's Bay Museum collection at the Manitoba Museum. Amelia, do you think the company did enough to acknowledge its complicated past as we get to this part of the history of the company?
Possibly not. I think, as I said, I think in the last few years, they really started to take that turn towards reconciling that history. But, and I think that's hard for a lot of corporations, particularly this HBC was bought by an American company. So there's lots of different factors at play that I think led to their evolution of where they're at right now. And I think, it might have taken a few more years of them still up and running before they really reached that point.
Just before you go, what do you want people to consider and think about when folks see your Hudson's Bay collection at the Manitoba Museum?
I'd like for them to come down and see really the rich integrated history, right? So, you've got the storefronts and the things that are in our immediate history memory. But thinking all the way back to when those first ships started coming into the bay and the relationships that needed to be built with First Nations and Inuit and Métis peoples, and the connections that had to be made and the complexities of those relationships. So every time you look at a beautiful artifact in the case, you could think about the woman or the man who made it and used it, the people who cared for it for many years, and how it found its way to the museum today.
Amelia, I really appreciate you making time to talk about this. I know a lot of people have lots of thoughts. I have a text message I'll read after we're done here, but thank you for the time today and take care.
Right. Thanks so much for having me.
Amelia Fay is curator of the Hudson's Bay Museum collection at the Manitoba Museum. Pending court approval, the retailer plans to liquidate its inventory and close up shop by June 15th. I want to read this one text message we received. Alana saying, in 1984, my family adopted a terrier puppy and the little one got out of the yard and ran away. He was found a day or so later in the bay downtown. He managed to get all the way over there from Valor Road. An employee of the bay had found him and was kind enough to call the Humane Society. We were reunited with our dog. It's a nice story. Thank you for sharing that and for calling us today. I'm Faith Fundal along with Abby Adiemi, our technician, Sierra Sanders, our director, Wendy Parker is our producer here. Travis Peterson is our YouTube live streamer person, the knower of all things. Thank you very much for joining us. Mag-ingat po kayo and take good care. Up to Speed is up at 3 o'clock, but first, the next chapter. See ya.